Welcome back to the table, and I'm pretty excited to be here today to share a little bit of information on Barrage New Lands, the 2 expansions that are coming to the board game Barrage. Now, this is a sponsored video. They did provide me with a copy of the prototype for both versions of Barrage New Lands, but I have to say I love this game. It's one of the reasons they asked me to do this and one of the reasons I accepted. So my unbridled enthusiasm for Barrage might come through here because I'm a huge fan of heavy games. And if you know anything at all about Barrage, you know it is considered one of the heavier games. Not necessarily in the teach of the game, because at its core, it is just a worker placement game. You're placing workers across a main board and your player board in order to build structures out on a map and ultimately produce energy. The goal of the game is to be the one that produces the most energy. Every single round, you're going to get some points, and you're going to have some point conditions that you're going to be fulfilling as you build things out on the board and play the game. Now, the reason this game is considered so heavy is because there is a lot of information that you have to process. You're going to be fighting over these water droplets. You're trying to hold these water droplets in your dams in order to generate power. So there is going to be a fight for these water droplets. You're going to be building in front of each other, trying to catch the water. You're going to be watching as players' dams can reroute the water to other places. You're trying to want to catch it as they do that. And the game itself is always evolving. So you can't really stick to one strategy over the course of the game. Now, this game definitely benefits from playing with a full player count of 4 players. And there is even a 5th player expansion. You really want to use all of it if you're going to play the game, because just there is so much going on and it's so much crazier when you have 5 players. However, that being said, the game has never really worked so great at 2. Even with the 2 to 3 player board, if you're playing 2 players, it just feels like there's a lot missing. You can just kind of go your own way and never really have to interact with each other, never really have to block each other if you don't want to, but if one player does, then they kind of get this big advantage. So for a long time, I just haven't really played Barrage at 2, which is why I was very excited to see that New Lands is bringing a 2-player only expansion called Barrage Duel. Now, this is an expansion still. You're going to have to bring in all of your base pieces from Barrage, so you do need the base game to play, and you can play with any of the expansions. You can use any of the modules from the base game. You can use the Laywater expansion, any of it, except not the 5-player expansion, obviously. But you can bring all of it in here, and the game plays actually pretty similar to how it plays in Duel. You're still doing the same things on the board. You're still trying to generate energy, build your buildings, fulfill those same scoring conditions at the end of every round. But there's a new layer added onto the game that you're going to be kind of fighting back and forth in more of a dual fashion. So the first thing, and you actually see this already set up in front of me, the game board does look very much like Barrage. However, to the train die, you'll notice immediately it is a lot smaller. You've only got these 2 down here, you've got 3 in the middle, and you've got 3 in a small little river up on the top. So the board itself is much smaller. Secondly, you're going to be placing fewer neutral dams out. And the setup here is actually very interesting. You've got a number of tiles, 1 through 8, and you're going to be assigning all of the different setup tokens to those numbered tiles and then placing those things out on the board. So that's how you're going to determine where the 2 types of neutral dams start. And you're also going to be determining where all of these little tokens start. These tokens are going to come out onto the board and make certain places in the game more expensive. You've still got the more expensive spots that you have to pay a little bit more. And you'll notice that all of these power plant sites only have 2 spaces. So the second player is always guaranteed to pay $3, but it's possible that the first player will have to pay as well if they want to go to some of those specific areas. So that's one way that they've kind of messed with the decisions that you're making on the game. It's not always clear cut where you're going to want to go because everything is much smaller. Now, you're still using the same setup tiles, although they did tell me that they're going to be introducing some special setup tiles for Duel that do a little bit different water allocations, but you're going to be still having these setup tiles that are going to determine where the water goes. But notice that some of these sections don't have any spaces for dams, so the water is just going to pass right through as it goes to the next section. So that's also a big difference. But the real big difference with Duel is this Duel board right here, and this is going to go above the scoreboard. I just kind of have it set out to the side so you can see what it's going to be like. At the start of the game, you're going to choose which factions you're playing and place those little tokens on each side. And you're going to be doing a tug of war with these 3 tug of war tokens. And you'll notice that there are 3 different conditions. There's a bunch of different condition tiles, and you can even use some condition tiles that reference some expansion things if you're using the expansions. But these are 3 core things that you're fighting over during the game. After each round, you're going to look at each one of these 3 conditions. For every 4 energy, for every 3 coins, and for the water droplets that are in your dams. You're going to be moving this, and each player is going to get to move it back and forth in a tug of war. So if you win with 6 coins, you're going to get to move this 2 spaces. However, if your opponent also ended with 6 coins, you're going to be moving it 2 spaces back. So ultimately, you're going to want to choose some of these to focus on, because every time one of these duel markers hits one of these bonuses, you're going to get that bonus tile immediately. You're going to take it off the board and you're going to cash it in. Of course, there are more of these bonus tiles as well. So every time you play this game, it's going to be a little variable. And of course, these different scoring conditions are not always going to be in the same line with these different points or abilities. Now, you've always got a 7-point token on the outside, but the inside is going to be different every single time you play. You're also going to notice some significant in-game scoring here if you can get any one of these duel markers all the way to your side of the board by the end of the game. So this board alone just brings an entirely new dynamic to Barrage, because you're not necessarily worried about what's happening, on the board with the water, maybe as much as you're worried about focusing on one of these things. If you can just, hoard a ton of coins and make sure that you're always moving this token towards you, you're going to end up with a ton of points at the end of the game from the 7 points and then the 15 you get at the end. And that can honestly, if you win 2 of these, that can defeat any amount of scoring that your opponent gets from the end of round scoring tiles or even the in-game scoring tile. But besides the addition of this board and some of the new elements, the game does play identically to the original game as far as how the turn structure works. So I won't talk a ton about that. If you don't really know how Barrage plays, you can watch other videos. We've done some content on Barrage here on the channel as well. But that is Barrage Duel, but that is not the only thing that is coming with this expansion. The other board is Colorado, and this is the Colorado River, and this adds a few new things as well, a few new elements to the game. Again, plays just like Barrage, requires all the base stuff, but you've got this new system where you can place bridges on top of your dams. Now, this is something that you've seen in Colorado with the Hoover Dam. You can actually drive across it, and it connected both sides of the Colorado River. So they're taking that to heart with this expansion, allowing you to take an action on the actual board to take a bridge tile and put it on top of your dam. If you do that, you get an immediate bonus, and some of these bonuses are pretty significant, but you don't get to elevate that dam any farther. So if you put it on your base level 1 dam, that's it. You cannot stack on top of your bridge because you would destroy it. That doesn't seem like a good idea. In addition to those bridges, you'll see here these construction sites. These are where you're going to either go to build a bridge, or you're going to trace a path from these roads to the different settlements that are spread out across the board. Now, the reason you want to do that is because these are action spaces that you can go to. If you visit them, you'll get some significant bonuses, but you have to pay. You have to pay 3 coins for every one of the spaces that you cross over. However, if there is a bridge there, you only have to pay 1 coin. And if it's your bridge, it's free. So you can actually plan out to take some of these very good settlement actions by placing these bridges in a specific order. And of course, that map is going to come with everything that you need to play that, all of the different bonus tiles. So there's going to be new buildings if you're using some of the expansions. There's going to be some new contracts that interact with some of those bridges and stuff. There's going to be new scoring tiles that interact with those bridges and settlements. And of course, a new in-game scoring tile as well, so you can mix all that stuff in. So if you're using the Colorado River map, you're going to be able to see some new stuff in the game that actually lets you manipulate that board a little bit differently. And I can tell you, after having played Colorado River, you definitely don't want to ignore all of those bridges and those settlements. They give you some powerful ways to do some actions that normally you could not do in Barrage. Of course, you're paying. You could be paying up to 9 coins for some of these locations. And you'll notice that they're labeled A, B, and C. They get better the farther away from the construction site you go. So you effectively have some that are 3 coins, 6 coins, and 9 coins. Now, if you start hammering home one of those 9 coin abilities, it probably behooves you to build a dam and get one of those bridges on top of it. So now they actually give you a little bit more motivation to maybe rush to the top of the map. In base Barrage, it's pretty silly to build your first dam all the way in the topmost space because it requires more to build the conduits there and it requires more to build the elevations. But if you're just planning on dropping one dam and then immediately putting a bridge on top of it to hammer in some of those abilities, that's actually a very viable strategy now. So both of these expansions are going to be available in the Barrage New Lands Kickstarter campaign. So take a look at that page to see what all the final components are going to look like. Of course, everything you saw today was just prototype, like I said earlier. So take a look at that. If you've never played Barrage before, you'll be able to get pretty much everything you need to play Barrage, including the 2 new expansion boards. So thank you so much for watching today. Please leave any questions or comments down below and join our Discord community where we're going to talk about this game and other hot new games. But until we see you again, make sure everybody has fun at the table.